So joining us now, South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, also member of the House Intel Committee. And you were one of those who saw some of the background documents related to this issue of whether or not there was a spy or an informant in the campaign late last week. Anything you can share on a broad scale about what went down there?
I think there are two things important to understand. Number one, the source of President Trump's frustration. Brennan said he should be in the dustbin of history. Comey said impeachment's too good of a remedy. Clapper doesn't like him. Loretta Lynch said call it a matter, not an investigation. Schiff said he had evidence of collusion before we even began the investigation. And 60 Democrats have voted to impeach him before Bob Mueller has come up with a single solitary finding. That's what's got him frustrated. What should have him heartened is the fact that Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein, and all the senior folks at DOJ now were all Trump appointees. So here's what's fair to ask. What did the FBI do? When did they do it? What was the factual predicate upon which they took whatever actions they took? And against whom were they directed? But remember, Martha, it was President Trump himself who said, number one, I didn't collude with Russia, but if anyone connected with my campaign did, I want the FBI to find that out. It looks to me like the FBI was doing what President Trump said, I want you to do, find it out. He's not the target. So when Schiff and others don't make that clear, they're doing a disservice to our fellow citizens. He's not the target.
But this raises the question that the president raised in this one of those tweets. There were a lot of them, and which we talked about quite a bit here last week. Is if that were the case, why didn't they give him a little briefing? So here's what we found out. We do have somebody who asked some questions of George Papadopoulos. We do have somebody who's asked questions of Carter Page. Here's what you need to know.
I think defensive briefings are done a lot, and why the Comey FBI didn't do it, I don't know. But Chris Wray and Rod Rosenstein have at least made it clear to us Donald Trump was never the target of the investigation. He's not the current target of the investigation. Now, keep in mind, that can all change depending on what a witness says. But as of now, I think Chris Wray and Rod Rosenstein are stunned whenever people think Trump is the target of their investigation. I'll leave it up to them how to brief the president or how to brief his lawyers.
Was that point of view that you're talking about right now, was that strengthened when you went into this briefing last week?
Yes. I am even more convinced that the FBI did exactly what my fellow citizens would want them to do when they got the information they got, and that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
All right. So given the things that were over here on your right hand, all the frustrations, do you think it's problematic the way the president is tweeting about this all the time? Because he feels like he needs to vent. He's got to get his message out there. Is it legally problematic in your mind what he's doing?
I think anytime you create prior statements, you give Mueller or other folks a chance to question you on them and ask, what was your factual basis? Why did you say that? The president should have access to the best legal minds in the country. And I think he should take advantage of those. And he's got some really good communicators that are on his staff and at his call. If I were his lawyer, and I never will be, I would tell him to rely on his lawyers and his comms folks.
All right, here's one of them. Rudy Giuliani speaking with Bill Hemmer over the holiday weekend. Watch this.
What's wrong with the government trying to figure out what Russia was up to?
Nothing wrong with the government doing that. Everything wrong with the government spying on a candidate of the opposition party. That's a Watergate, a Spygate. I mean, and without any warning to him. And now, to compound that, to make it into a criminal investigation, Bill, that's why this is a rigged investigation.
There are two things wrong with what the former U.S. attorney said. Number one, no one knows whether this is a criminal investigation. Mueller was told to do a counterintelligence investigation into what Russia did. Number two, President Trump himself, in the Comey memos, said, if anyone connected with my campaign was working with Russia, I want you to investigate it. And it sounds to me like that is exactly what the FBI did. I think when the president finds out what happened, he's going to be not just fine, he's going to be glad that we have an FBI that took seriously what they heard. He was never the target. Russia is the target.
So it sounds to me as if you would advise him that there's no problem with him sitting down with Robert Mueller.
Oh, absolutely not. I have always said, I think you ought to sit down with
Congressional leaders meeting with senior intelligence and law enforcement officials this past Thursday about the Russia investigation. President Trump claims a so-called government spy was placed in his campaign. One day after that meeting, the president tweeting, "Can anyone even imagine having spies placed in a competing campaign by the people and party in absolute power for the sole purpose of political advantage and gain? And to think that the party in question, even with the expenditure of far more money, lost!" Exclamation point. Now here's the other side. Democrat ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. Watch.
Nothing we heard today has changed our view that there is no evidence to support any allegation that the FBI or any intelligence agency placed a spy in the Trump campaign or otherwise failed to follow appropriate procedures and protocols.
Joining me right now, Bud Cummins. He's a former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Arkansas and partner at Avenue Strategies. Good to see you, Bud.
Good morning.
What do you think really happened here?
Well, you know, they're playing word games, and it's intended to be a distraction. And I think if you look at the overall landscape, there's a lot of concern among the Democrats and the left about the political implications of these latest revelations. They don't want to concede that a spy was put in the campaign. Okay, what about a confidential human resource paid to approach members of the campaign to try and elicit damning information? I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but they, during the course of an ongoing presidential campaign, the FBI targeted people in the campaign and went on a fishing expedition. And
okay,
I think
so
it's
what's the
troubling,
difference between a spy and an informant?
You got me. What's the difference between a murdering MS-13 gang member and an animal? You know, what's the difference between they eavesdropped on my campaign, whatever the president said, you know, they eavesdropped on me in Trump Tower. Well, they put taps on members of his team that talked to him. It's a word game.
So I guess the question then,
it's talking points is really what it is.
Were they doing this for political reasons, or were they doing this because they somehow thought there was a legit fear that the Russians had infiltrated the Trump campain? The president says political reasons. I can't look into the souls of all the decision makers, but it's gross incompetence, and at best, it was a bunch of career bureaucrats within DOJ and FBI trying to somehow get involved in something they absolutely had no understanding of, which is politics, and they completely gummed it up. That's so why
the best
would they do
scenario.
that?
Well, they might have convinced themselves they were trying to do good, and they had some legitimate concern about Russian interference in elections. I mean, we can give them that, but now let's fast forward. And I ask you, what are they investigating now? What is the Mueller team? And I ascribe no misdeeds to Rosenstein or Mueller. What are they investigating? And in this polarized country, shouldn't you and I know that? I mean, you and I probably have 8 or 12 years of college between us, and we have no idea what they're doing.
They're allegedly investigating collusion. They want to know whether the Russians colluded with the Trump campaign. I mean, I think you and I have, and the rest of America right now has already seen that there is no evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians.
That's right.
But that's what they're claiming that they could wrap it up shortly. I mean, I guess it's a question of whether or not the president's willing to sit down for an interview. Should he?
I don't think he should, because it's a trap, and until he and his team and the American public even know what crime they're investigating. You know, you've talked about a young man being released in Venezuela. You've talked about North Korea. Our justice system is supposed to be different than that. You know, there's a DOJ motto. It's in Latin, and there's kind of a little mystery about it, because apparently the people who understand Latin say it doesn't really mean anything. It's grammatically incorrect. So, but I'll tell you one thing it doesn't mean. Show me the man and we'll find you the crime. Right. That's about as American as Russian caviar. And that's what we're doing right now.
So Lee Zeldin, Congressman Zeldin, was just here on set, and he's calling for a second special counsel. I've talked to some people who say that, look, they don't like special counsels, period, because they think it sends us down a dangerous path and a slippery slope. That said, I think what you're getting at is, they've got this investigation going on. So far, they've come up with no collusion. But is there something else there? Is there a deep state at work that really wants to basically change the will of the American people? And if so, does that deserve a special counsel investigation?
I count me among the people that don't like the special counsel statute. Congress created the independent counsel. They tried to fix it here. It obviously doesn't work. They've allowed a special counsel to be launched like the bomber at the end of Dr. Strangelove on fraudulent pretense, and now they don't know how to recall it. It's just going. And so I don't like that. I think in this case, it's the weaponization of politics. But the American people deserve the truth.
Yeah.
So whether it's through the independent or through the OIG reports, or through a special a committee that Congress sets up for this purpose to have hearings like in Iran-Contra and find out. But they need to do it soon because the American people, there's so many important things going on. And nobody deserves to have this distraction where they're shouting questions at the president about Russia when we've got all these important things going on.
But before I let you go, I mean, isn't this exactly what Russia might have wanted? I mean, isn't this what Vladimir Putin wanted all along? I mean, this discord that we now have?
Of course it is. Their interests merged with the Democrat Party's interests, and they were able to con the country into going down this path, and we don't know how to stop it.
Yeah. All right, Bud Cummins, so good to see you. Thank you very much for all your insight. Be sure, everyone, you got to catch next Sunday's show because Maria's going to be interviewing the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. It's starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Fox News Channel. You know, there's a chance that the summit with Kim Jong-un might actually still happen. Coming up, why analysts say North Korea may need a deal as we look ahead today on Sunday Morning Futures.